This week is all about the 9 virtues. So the requirement in the Dedicant Guide states that written discussion of the Dedicant's understanding of each of the following 9 virtues: wisdom, piety, vision, courage, integrity, perseverance, hospitality, moderation, and fertility. The Dedicant may also include other virtues if desired and compare them to these 9. It's a minimum of 125 words each. The rubric states that we were talking about last week. For adequate to pass this requirement, you must include all 9 virtues that are stated above. Your word count is a minimum of 125, and your review is subjective combined with objective. So, for example, this is what it means with the dictionary definition or the definition out of our own Druidry guide, and what the virtue means to you. For over and above, you need to include all 9 or more. Make sure your word count is okay. Take a creative approach, so a different way of looking at things, and critique why you decided to include certain virtues over other ones. For example, a why in addition to what. The other part is a 3 functional analysis. I'll be hinting at this throughout, but it needs to be looked into. So with that 3 functional analysis, the virtues can be looked at individually or in 3 triads. The way I actually listed them off is the triads. So wisdom, piety, and vision, courage, integrity, perseverance, hospitality, moderation, and fertility. Our own Druidry defines the first triad as wisdom, being good judgment, the ability to perceive people and situations correctly, deliberate and decide on the correct response. Piety, correct observance of ritual and social traditions, the maintenance of agreements, both personal and societal, that we humans have with the gods and spirits, keeping the old ways through ceremony and duty. And vision, the ability to broaden one's perspective to have a greater understanding of our place and role in the cosmos, relating to the past, present, and future. Now, how do you see these 3 virtues relating to each other?
Well, they all kind of feed into each other.
They do feed into each other, especially in that these 3 virtues are the 3, for the tripartite theory, they're considered the priest class or the druid class.
Right.
Now, can you think of examples of these 3 in your everyday life?
Well, wisdom could be seen as right decision, piety, right action. You know, it's taking things to the next level in each one.
Yeah, for piety, something that some people do is they have their own personal observance calendar. So they'll add in extra holidays, they'll add in extra rituals, etc.
I do morning devotions.
Pardon?
I do morning devotions. Exactly.
And some people will even have a day specified to say Cuchulainn.
Right.
Or they'll have a day, they'll extend feast days. So one of my friends who's going into the clergy training program did with her husband 15 days before Lunasa and 15 days afterwards. He's doing a feat of strength each day, and she's writing a different prayer to Lou.
Daisy, I'm sorry, honey.
Amanda, did you catch all that? All right, if I'm lagging, don't hesitate to ask me to repeat something. I will try and go a little bit slower so the lag is not so bad.
when you're, pardon me if I'm asking about something that I should know, but when you're talking about the rubric, what specifically do you mind? What do you mean?
There's a rubric that the Dedicant reviewers, so the people reviewing all the Dedicant paths, use to make sure all the reviews are on an even playing field. The rubric that is listed online is not the one that has been approved by the ADF preceptor.
Okay, so that needs to be updated.
It does need to be updated. She has given me the rubric. She has also allowed me to send it out to any of the students who are joining the classes to make sure their Dedicant path is up to standards.
Okay. I would appreciate that.
Will do.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull this. I'm better with visuals.
Got it? I don't have page references in my notes, or I'd give them to you. Sorry.
That's okay.
Are you good for us to move on to the second triad?
Sure.
All right, so the second triad is courage, the ability to act appropriately in the face of adversity, integrity, honor, being true to oneself and others, involving oath-keeping, honesty, fairness, respect, and self-confidence, perseverance, drive, the motivation to pursue goals even when that pursuit becomes difficult. I did mention these are a triad, so how do you think these three relate?
Well, I was just faced with this recently. I had to have the courage to withdraw from my prior coven, and I had to have the integrity to realize I had to be true to where my path needed to go. Which they kind of work together, because it's really hard to tell somebody you've worked with for 10 years and that you consider a personal friend, I'm sorry, I can't be part of your group right now. And, you know, perseverance is part of the reason why I started the DP project, is because if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it. You know, I'm going to see it through. I'm going to work on it, and that's where you need to go. Yeah, I would almost put integrity before courage, because you have to be honest with yourself, and sometimes that's harder than being under fire.
Amanda says you have to have courage to do what's tough and what's right in the face of difficulties.
Truth.
Is very true. These three play off each other very much. As well, without courage, sometimes you can't have perseverance.
Mm-hmm.
Without integrity, you can't have perseverance. Sometimes you need perseverance to have integrity.
Right.
This triad is what's known as the warrior's triad, because many of them are honor, doing things in the face of adversity, and continuing on even when the path is difficult.
Amanda, I feel your pain.
Amanda says, I'm doing a double major plus minor, and this is basically my life right now. In college and university, yes, very much so. Now, throughout all these, when writing them up, be sure to include that subjective and objective approach. So making sure you've got these definitions. If not these ones, another one from a dictionary, etc., to ensure that you've got what it means and what it means to you.
Right.
The last triad is hospitality, acting as both gracious host and appreciative guest, involving benevolence, friendliness, humor, and the honoring of a gift for a gift. Moderation, cultivating one's appetite so that one is neither a slave to them nor driven to ill health, mental or physical, through excess or deficiency. And fertility, bounty of mind, body, and spirit, involving creativity and industry, an appreciation for the physical and sensual, nurturing these qualities in others.
And again, they all weave together. You know, uh, Guesty is, it's central, and it is such a huge theme. And growing up in the mountains in an area where winters can be brutal, you don't, if somebody's out on the road and lost, you give them house room. That's just, you've got to, because otherwise it's tantamount to murder.
And even as one of our priests has said, you're both guest and host in other people's lives at all times.
Right.
So you have to think of how you're interacting with everybody else when it comes to hospitality, because you're a host to their experiences, but also guest within them.
Right. And moderation and fertility, I am a very sensual person in the sense that I'm very tactile. Going to a fabric shop or a yarn shop is a feast for the senses in the most extreme, in the truest sense. And moderation is something that you have to know when to say, okay, for instance, I have a deal with my husband. My yarn stash is restricted to a 4-drawer filing cabinet. If it won't fit in the cabinet, I can't buy anything else until I've used up some of my stash. Otherwise, my stash would take over my house. It's, some people think of moderation, oh, food and drink. Well, and that's true too. But that's just part of it.
It's very true. It's all the things in our lives. It's how much stuff we have. It's, for example, how much yarn we have. I'm that way too.
Salute.
So, but it's also making sure that you're not, it goes into hospitality as well. Because if you're a guest in someone's home, the old adage is you don't want to eat them out of house and home.
Exactly. One of the first rules my parents told me was if you go out to dinner at someone's home, or if someone takes you out to a restaurant, you let them order first so that you have an idea of what their budget is. So, don't order the most expensive thing on the menu, Now,
fertility is one virtue that some people have had issues with in the past when it comes to the Dedicant program, because they think of the societal version of fertility with regards to having children, etc., where this is not the case. Although it does work into that, it's also the creativity and making sure that you foster creativity in others, fostering their gifts and abilities, whether it's through poetry, whether it's through writing, whether it's through physical creation, whether it's through whatever their passion is. It's making sure that those things are fostered in their lives to ensure that they have that bounty of mind, body, and spirit.
Right. My son is an artist, my husband is a musician, and I'm a writer. And a fiber artist. And creativity never stands still in this house. And I understand, when I first read that, I was like, yes, this, but, and I was like, I am past my fertile years. I'm a crone. I actually had personal cards made up that say crone, druid, teacher, herbalist, fiber artist, because I'm all of those things. And the fertility is what I bring to each of those things and pull them all together. Am I making any sense?
You are. It's with this triad, you also have to think it's the triad of the producers.
Right.
So it's the triad of the farmers. It's the triad of the
The
wives sitting
healers.
home knitting sweaters for winter. It's the triad of those who are creating art. It's the triad of the bards of old.
The herbalist making medicine.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where, especially in some of the Norse stories, where a god would come to a commoner's home.
Be careful who you invite.
Be careful who you turn away, be careful who you invite. Because in some cases, you may have one of the gods standing at your door in plain clothing and you don't know it's them.
Right.
And when you invite them in and they reveal themselves, you're standing there dumbstruck, but at the same time, they're willing to help you out because you were willing to give them hospitality. Now, I had said at the beginning that you can also include extra virtues. When or if you include extra virtues, you must ensure that they are written to the same standard as your other 9. So that they have the 125 word minimum, that they have the subjective and objective approach. Of course, for other virtues, you're not going to be able to get the definition out of our own Druidry guide. However, dictionaries, stuff like that, are totally plausible for this. But you also have to have that, what does this virtue mean to me? A good thing to include with regards to if you're including other virtues is why you included the virtue. This can wrap into your, what it means to you, but it's always good to explain to your reviewer why you've actually included this virtue. Mm-hmm. Now, are there any virtues that you two can think of that you would want to include?
Compassion.
One other person said compassion in the text class.
It kind of wraps into hospitality, but empathy and compassion, they remind you that you are not the center. It's very easy to see yourself as the center of everything. I come from a big family, and clan is really important to me, whether it's blood or heart. And heart is the big thing for me.
And that's where the lady that mentioned in the text class compassion, she also said that it could be wrapped into hospitality, but at the same time, because it's such a big part of her life, she would include it as a 10th virtue, because it's almost separate from hospitality.
Right. It's, well, like I said, it's heart. It's beyond a virtue, it's what makes us who we are. If you don't have that kind of heart, how can you truly be the kind of person to minister to others?
And that's very true, because you have to have that empathy towards other people in order to ensure that you're not causing more harm than good.
Exactly.
Amanda's thought of one. I'm going to give her a minute to type out an explanation.
Right.
If she would like to. The one that a lot of people in our society would also think of is patience. Because everyone always says patience is a virtue.
Yes. However, and no.
Yes and no. However, I would also see this as, to an extent, part of hospitality, as well as part of moderation. Because you're looking at patience from, you need to do something, but moderating your time to ensure that everything else gets done as well.
Well, you could almost create another triad.
Now, the thing with the 9 virtues is they do all work together. Mm-hmm. And even through the triads, you can reference other triads with them.
Right.
Now, Amanda's suggested love as another virtue. And she says, well, love is just so crucial, and I'm not talking about romantic love. I'm talking about love in terms of respect and honor for certain or all things in your life. And I think that also wraps into your version of compassion, Linda, where it's your heart, it's where your empathy comes from.
Right. I'm glad that these are being archived because I'm writing sporadic notes, but I'm focusing more on you than on writing notes.
Now, when looking at comparing, say, between the 3 triads, if we look to wisdom, piety, vision, and courage, integrity, and perseverance, those 2 different triads can have different things integrated between them. So, for example, you have to have wisdom to be able to have courage, because with wisdom's good judgment and courage's ability to act appropriately in the face of adversity, you need to know exactly where your judgment lies in order to be able to act appropriately. Same with your example of integrity and piety earlier. You have to have the integrity to have your correct observances and keeping your personal agreements with the old ones.
Mm-hmm. Well, true. And they really do all weave back and forth.
Like hospitality and piety, if you go to the 3rd triad with the 1st. Because piety, when you're inviting the kindred and working with them, you're also being their host for the day, or their host for the time.
Right.
Where you're ensuring that you have food and drink and comforts available for them when they come to visit and come to work with you. Do either of you have any questions about anything I've said so far?
No, I think I've got a handle on it. It's hard to... I understand why this is a big part of the Dedicant path, because stuff like this is frequently, you know, in your gut, but it's hard to put into words sometimes. You know,
Amanda said she's good for now. However, if she does have any questions, she is sure that they will flow after this is over. That was the giggle.
yeah, mine too. uh, I like being able to talk things over like this. I wish Amanda were able to fully take part. Um, when it comes down to, you know, for instance, wisdom, piety, and vision, you know, it's one of those things where I'm wise enough to know what I don't know. Sometimes that kind of wisdom is way more important than book learning, as my grandma used to say.
And that's very true. Sometimes knowing exactly, or the realm of what you don't actually know and what you're not comfortable with,
Mm-hmm.
can force you into different versions of piety.
Well, speaking personally, starting up a grove, high on the terror list. I am not usually the leader. I am usually the person in the background doing the writing and, you know, making things run smoothly. Um, so this is a new realm for me in that respect.
We do have a week later on about the core order of ritual.
Well, as it happens, I've spent much of the last 2 weeks writing up our ritual, our first ritual for our new grove, because it was approved the middle of June, but I was out of town, and it took me a little time and a few meetings to get things going. So tomorrow afternoon we're having our first ritual, and high on the terror list. But
However, that was also part of your vision, was the fact that you were able to broaden your perspective to know that your area needed a grove.
mm-hmm. Well, the three nearest groves were each 3 hours away and in different directions. Um, and you know, I did tap. Um, I sent a copy of the ritual that I wrote to Nancy McAndrew and asked her to take a look at it, and she thought that I had done a fine job of it. I freely admit to, you know, looking at a lot of the information on the website and getting into the book of prayer. I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Kai Sarah.
Him, yes. And read a bunch of stuff from the Crane books and kind of pulled things together.
And even though we don't have to live the 9 virtues in our everyday lives, I like to have people pull examples of the 9 virtues from their own lives so that they can see how these virtues actually mean something to them. And in this case,
you have to try.
In this case, it's also a version of good judgment on your part, because you knew what you didn't know and went looking for the information you needed.
And asked for somebody to take a look at it. You know, asking for help is also a virtue. That's a sign of wisdom. When you know that you're in over your head, if you keep plowing forward, that's not wisdom. That's foolhardy.
And that it can also be take courage in order to ask for the help in the first place.
True, because if you don't want to look stupid and you don't want to impose, but if you've got brains enough to know that you need help, you have to have the courage to look past that to, okay, which would be worse? Looking silly in front of this person I respect or looking really stupid in front of 10 people who may or may not know you well?
Exactly. And that's where all of these virtues actually pull together. So, however, I think that since we've covered all 9, I've made sure that you guys know that you do have to have the 125 words, and that if you do include extra virtues, that they are held to the same standards. Our preceptor has told me that if you do include extra virtues and they are not up to the standard of the other 9, and you've just thrown them in, your Dedicant path can be returned to you for that. So please make sure if you do include them that they are up to proper standard. However, I think that is everything for this week.
Cool.
So
Thank
if you guys
so
don't have
much
any questions.
Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I know that it's not easy.
It's not a problem at all. However, if you do have any questions, I am available. Gmail, Facebook. Comments left on the YouTube video. I will answer those. Carrion, who is not here this week, as well as Chris, who is also not here this week, but they were my priest helpers from last week. Carrion is also our preceptor. They are also open to questions, so it's very easy to reach any of us in order to get a question answered.
Great.
Alrighty, so that is it for this week. I will see you. Oh, I should make note. Next class will not be on the 15th of August.
Okay.
I will be at Summerland, where I do not have internet connectivity.
Have fun.
Our next class will be on August 22nd.
Okay.
Everything's just getting moved a week, so you guys will still be after the text class and not missing a week. I'm just shifting everything down in the calendar.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Give me 2 seconds and I will be able to tell you what our next week is looking like. Week 3 is the kindred. So our 3 kindred of nature spirits, ancestors, and shining ones. That is our next class.
Cool.
So I will see you on the 22nd.
Very good. Thanks much.
No problem.
Ta.
Bye.